Hello, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. We're going to head out on the Canadian prairies in the middle of Alberta. This is Rosebud, Alberta. It has fewer than 100 residents, but entertains 40,000 visitors at its fine arts, acting, and theater program. It has a certified apprenticeship program in the theater and live arts, one of the largest of its kind in Canada. This former thriving farming and ranching community is about 100 kilometers northeast of Calgary. The old grain elevators and the school are gone, and when a prairie community loses those two key elements, it makes expansion very difficult. Many of the old buildings are gone, but others have been renovated and converted for new uses. From Calgary, you head northeast out here to Rosebud, and it's about less than a half hour from the small city of Drumheller. Like in most small prairie towns, the characteristic grain elevators are gone. This one was bought by a local farmer, and this is a bed and breakfast that's in the town. And here's a picture of the old Rosebud train station. Years gone by, we rode our bicycles down the abandoned railway line, and we'll show you those a little later in the video. But we're here to see the play. The particular play we saw was called The Greenhouse, and the theater holds, 200 to 300 people, and plays are offered throughout the year, and the quality of the acting is excellent. Across the street from the theater was this little bookstore and curio shop. You could buy various souvenirs and cards in it. Our ticket to the play included a meal, and it was absolutely one of the best. Cafeteria style, you picked out your own stuff, and lots of variety and top quality food. The salad bar was just terrific, and it did not compare really to the dessert section. All kinds of desserts, and every one of them just mouth-watering. Good food and nice surroundings. And some entertainment. And after the play, we all filed out of the theater. Some met with the actors outside. We walked around town to see the various sights. Outside the town's museum was this big rock. Frequently, this type was found across the prairies. Left by receding glaciers of thousands of years ago, these rocks often were used as scratching posts by the buffalo. Rubbing the rocks to soothe their itching skin, the buffalo over the years wore these rocks down where they were smooth and rounded. Several plaques along the streets told about the history, including the Chinese workers who came in with the construction of the railway and stayed to run various businesses in town, like restaurants and laundromats. We were looking at the old abandoned railroad bed here in this part of the country, around Rosebud. And we just had to get our bikes out and go for a little bike ride on that railroad bed. This photo was taken by Roy Perry of the steam locomotive and train station at another similar prairie town in the area called Rowley. All the rails have been pulled up on these old lines, and some of them make interesting biking trails. The gravel on the beds made it a little bumpy, but Our wide tires on our bikes helped out. We passed a few farms along the way. There you can see our wide tires, and we crossed this bridge. You can probably hear the tires on the gravel. Notice the grass, how tall it grows on the prairies. Nobody cuts the grass here. A little bit of traffic does keep the rail bed so you can ride along it. Bushes to the side. You can see the kind of vegetation that grows on the prairies here. Mostly softwood trees like these poplars. These rail beds are nice and straight and level and make a very enjoyable ride. We crossed over several bridges across Rosebud Creek or river. We decided to walk our bikes through here. It was fairly isolated and quite far from back home at Rosebud, where the campers were at. So just for safety, we decided we would walk here. There was some water in the river. It was not fast flowing at all, just lazy and muddy. And apparently there's some fish in it. And it wound its way and twisted its way across the prairies as we biked along the straight railway track. It was a nice, peaceful place. Here you can see the width of the planks on the bridge, and that's why we walked them. We didn't want our wheel to get turned sideways. We rode by a few rural areas like this and to a small town 10 or 15 kilometers away, and notice the statues of geese they had put on top of this gate entry. This was an old farm site. People still lived in it. There's the bales of hay. The machinery often not used anymore and obsolete. There was room to just leave it out on the fields, and that was commonly done. And it rusted in the rain and in the sun, but it was characteristic of many farmlands. Like I say, there was lots of room, so you didn't have to keep it in machine sheds or undercover. Once back in town, we went to the good-sized museum. I always like to stop at a museum because it gives you a better understanding of the place. This painting told me the story of how the U.S. Army set fires across the American plains to starve the Indians, particularly the Sioux and Arapaho and the Cheyenne. Under the Sioux were under Sitting Bull, who had escaped to Canada after the Custer's last stand in Montana. Trouble was the fires and smoke darkened the sky, preventing the great buffalo herds from their annual migrations north, thus starving Indian people on both sides of the border. These railway lanterns told how the Canadian government's national railway company, Canadian National, eventually bought out and kept operating the many unprofitable rail lines like the one through Rosebud. The other railway company, Canadian Pacific, which was a private enterprise, was left more profitable rail lines that made it the successful business corporation it became. The museum had pictures that told a story of this area, which was based on both farming and ranching. Farming in the old days was dependent on horses. These horse collars were part of each pair or team's harnesses that enabled them to pull the wagons. These horses were pretty tame and well trained, but if they got bit by horse flies or stepped on a beehive out in the field, then you had an uncontrollable wild runaway on your hands. How many of you young fellers remember cutting the crop and tying it with the binder to make these bundles? Then you set up the bundles in these stooks to dry out enough to separate them later separate the straw from the grain in the threshing machine. As a young fella, I stooked for $1 an hour or $1 an acre, whichever way was the most pay. It was big money, and I was only too happy to do it. Here is one of the old threshing machines. Very common, but replaced these days with modern combines. And how about this old steel wheel tractor? It worked the fields before the invention of rubber and rubber tires. But prairie rural life is more than just farming. There was ranching as well, and it was strong in this area. The museum had pictures of the ranching side. Horses, cattle, and sheep for a while dominated the landscape. Branding irons were heated in fires and scarred brands or, in effect, tattoos on the cattle's hides to show you owned that animal. Branding irons are obsolete now since everything is recorded by computer. In the ranch country, the main big sport is the stampede, and the biggest was the Calgary Stampede, and we went to it every year. The Americans call it a rodeo, but we call it a stampede. Ranch hands were contestants, including in the world-famous chuck wagon races that were held as the last event at some stampedes. There was a lot of technology about the old days in the Rosebud Museum, things that were forerunners to the technology that we take for granted today. It all developed in steps over time. Let's take a look at some of it. The museum had a big display of old technology. The cylinder phonograph came before the record and before digital music today. Old metal wash tubs with handle wringers that squeezed out the water before the clothes were hung with clothespins on the line outside. Look at the shapes of the old wrenches. In communication, old typewriters and early telephones, big and hung on the wall. Everybody shared the line. No private phone line. You could lift the receiver and listen to others, get to hear all of the community gossip. We called it rubbering. All the calls went through a telephone operator who had to pull and push these wires to connect you with another caller. All before this automatic and private stuff we enjoy today. Heavy metal irons were heated on the stove and ironed wrinkles out of the clothes. Other things heated on the kitchen wood stove. Pump engines pulled water out of the ground for the animals and for the house. Some houses had a pump right in the kitchen. An organ was in every church, and many worked at the local coal mine that has been long shut down. We are back to railroading. We walked down the street and by this house, and this fella had really made a major model railway system in his front yard. Well, if you take some time in a place, you'll find out the story and stories about it and the people in it. And whether you're in the middle of a city or out here in the Alberta prairie countryside, the same applies. So take some time and come on out and enjoy a place. This is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. Hit the subscribe button and that'll tell you when we're putting more videos on the internet. Until then, so long for now. If you want to see other videos that we've made and put on the internet, just Google, like it says there at the bottom. Google my name, Don Barnett 5090, and click on my name. Hit the word playlists in the middle of the page, and scroll down. There's about 25 or 30 playlists, and each playlist contains travel videos.